You spend $300 on a high-tech synthetic jacket. Waterproof, breathable, developed by engineers using space-age materials. And you are still shivering in 40-degree weather. Meanwhile, a medieval peasant in simple wool stayed warm through winters that hit minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. No Gore-Tex, no Primaloft, no NASA-derived insulation technology. What is going on here? The problem is not your expensive outer layer. The problem is what you are wearing underneath it. That cotton t-shirt is sabotaging your entire thermal system from within. Modern comfort has made our bodies weaker at generating natural heat. We have forgotten the three-layer system that kept people alive through brutal conditions for thousands of years. And the outdoor apparel industry has a financial interest in keeping you confused about why their products underperform. Medieval people had a saying, "Only the lazy and stupid freeze." This was not cruelty. It was practical wisdom. Survival was not random luck. It was skill, knowledge, and the right system working together. Today, we are diving into the science of why medieval clothing worked and why yours does not. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been cold despite wearing expensive outdoor gear? That frustrating feeling of shivering in a jacket that cost more than a week's groceries? Tell me your experience, because what you are about to learn will change how you dress for cold weather permanently. We are going to break down the physics of why natural fibers dominated cold weather survival for thousands of years. We will examine what archaeologists are pulling from melting glaciers. And we will expose why the modern apparel industry abandoned proven science for profitable shortcuts. By the end, you will understand exactly how medieval people stayed warm and how to apply their system today. Let us start with the biggest culprit in your wardrobe: cotton. Cotton is a hydrophilic fiber, which means it loves water. When you sweat or get caught in light rain, cotton absorbs that moisture and holds onto it. But here is where it becomes dangerous. Wet cotton collapses, those tiny air pockets that provide insulation when the fabric is dry. They disappear under the weight of the water. The cotton fibers straighten out and lie flat against your skin. Your base layer is no longer insulating you. It is actively conducting heat away from your body. This is why outdoor professionals have a saying, "Cotton kills." That is not hyperbole. Wet cotton can pull heat from your core for hours, leading to hypothermia even on seemingly mild days. Your expensive jacket becomes irrelevant when your base layer is working against you. Water conducts heat away from your body 25 times faster than air. A wet cotton shirt turns your torso into a heat-bleeding disaster, and because cotton dries slowly, this thermal drain continues for hours. But the problem goes deeper than fabric choice. Modern humans live in what scientists call thermoneutral zones. We move from heated homes to climate-controlled cars to heated offices. Our bodies rarely experience non-life-threatening cold stress. This constant comfort has consequences. Our natural defenses against cold have atrophied. Medieval people had faster, stronger shivering responses. Their bodies were quicker to pull blood away from extremities to protect vital organs. They were physiologically tougher because their environment demanded it. We have traded that resilience for convenience. Central heating lets us make fatal clothing choices without immediate consequences. We do not have to guess about medieval clothing systems. The ice is giving up its secrets. Norway's Secrets of the Ice project has been recovering artifacts from melting glaciers for over a decade. These are not museum pieces or artistic interpretations. They are actual garments worn by real people who survived conditions that would kill most of us today. In 2019, researchers pulled a complete woven Viking mitten from a mountain pass. It had been preserved in ice for over 1,000 years. The construction is remarkable. Dense wool yarn, tightly woven with complex patterns that create multiple layers of trapped air. This was not casual clothing. This was survival technology. Archaeological finds from medieval Russian sites reveal the complete three-layer system in detail. Layer 1 was the linen chemise, worn directly against the skin. This was not about insulation. This was about moisture management and hygiene. Medieval people understood something crucial. Their valuable wool layers were expensive and difficult to wash. The linen chemise served as a washable barrier, protecting the wool from body oils and sweat. But linen had another critical property. Unlike cotton, linen fibers have natural capillary action. When you sweat, linen pulls that moisture away from your skin without structural collapse. The fibers do not straighten and flatten like cotton does when wet. They maintain their structure and continue moving moisture outward. Layer 2 was the wool tunic, the insulating engine of the entire system. This layer had one job: trap body heat. The genius was in the modular approach. Need more warmth? Add another wool layer. Medieval Russians would wear multiple tunics, one over the other. The most sophisticated version was the gambazin, a quilted jacket stuffed with wool or linen tow. The quilted construction created dozens of individual air-trapping chambers that prevented insulation from shifting or settling. Layer 3 was the weather shield, dense wool cloaks with natural lanolin coating, fur-lined capes for the wealthy, leather outer garments for wind protection. This layer blocked wind and shed precipitation before it could reach the insulation layer. The system left zero thermal bridges. Every gap was sealed against heat loss. Sleeves overlapped with mittens. Tunics extended below the belt to overlap with leg coverings. Hoods integrated with shoulder coverage. Medieval people treated clothing construction like military engineering, because for them, it was life and death. If this is valuable to you, hit that like button. It helps this information reach people who need it. To understand why medieval clothing worked so well, we need to examine the physics of wool itself. This is not historical curiosity. This is hard science that explains why natural fibers dominated cold weather survival for thousands of years. Let us start with wool's secret weapon, lanolin. This is the waxy substance sheep naturally produce in their sebaceous glands. Medieval people used wool that was unprocessed or only minimally processed. The lanolin was still coating the fibers. They were essentially wearing nature's version of Gore-Tex. Water would bead up and roll off their cloaks instead of soaking through. But lanolin does something even more sophisticated. While the surface of the wool fiber repels liquid water, the core of the fiber can absorb water vapor, up to 30% of its weight. This creates a hygroscopic core with a hydrophobic surface. The wool pulls moisture vapor away from your skin without feeling wet or clammy. This dual-action moisture management is nearly impossible to replicate with synthetic materials. Modern DWR coatings wear off after repeated washing. Lanolin is part of the fiber structure itself. Now consider the crimp structure that makes wool's insulation so remarkable. Under magnification, a wool fiber looks like a tiny helical spring. This three-dimensional crimp creates millions of stable air pockets within the yarn. These are not random gaps that collapse under pressure. They are engineered spaces maintained by the fiber's spring structure. When cotton gets wet, its straight fibers absorb water and collapse. The fabric becomes dense and loses all insulating air pockets. When wool gets wet, those crimped fibers maintain their spring structure. They continue trapping insulating air even when thoroughly soaked. This is why wool insulates when wet is not just marketing, it is physics. The crimp does not disappear when wet. It springs back when dried. Medieval people could work in snow, get caught in rain, or sweat heavily without losing thermal protection. There is also the fire safety factor. Wool is naturally flame resistant. It will char and self-extinguish when exposed to flame. Synthetic materials melt and stick to skin, causing severe burns. For people working around campfires and hearths, this difference was critical. If medieval systems were so effective, why did we abandon them? The answer lies in three converging forces that prioritized speed and profit over thermal performance. The Industrial Revolution changed everything. Manufacturing speed became more important than product quality. Factory-produced clothing could be made in hours using unskilled labor. while traditional construction took skilled craftsmen weeks. Cotton became king, not because it was superior, but because it was profitable. Cotton plantations made this inferior fiber cheaper than quality wool processing. Mill owners could produce cotton fabric at a fraction of wool's cost. The market chose economics over physics. Then came cheap fossil fuels. When you could heat a poorly built house for just a few dollars a month, thermal efficiency became irrelevant. Why invest in expensive wool clothing when you could just turn up the thermostat? Marketing campaigns convinced consumers that synthetic high-tech materials surpassed natural alternatives in every metric. Natural materials were portrayed as primitive, uncomfortable, and outdated. Synthetic became synonymous with progress. Trade schools abandoned traditional knowledge. As industrial methods replaced artisan skills, accumulated wisdom simply died out. Schools stopped teaching fiber properties, traditional construction, and thermal physics. Knowledge that kept people alive for thousands of years was discarded as obsolete. The irony is devastating. Modern synthetic insulators, polyester fleece, Primaloft, are hydrophobic. They do not absorb water, which sounds like an advantage, but they lack wool's sophisticated moisture management. They either repel all moisture, creating a vapor barrier effect, or they wick so aggressively that you feel clammy. And when activity stops, that trapped moisture leads to rapid cooling. Synthetics also fail the durability test. A wool garment could last decades with proper care. It could be repaired, altered, and eventually composted. A synthetic garment might be lighter and dry faster, but it sheds microplastics with every wash and represents a permanent environmental cost. The knowledge did not disappear everywhere. In rural Alaska, parts of Scandinavia, and remote regions of Russia, people still dress using these traditional principles. They stay comfortable when others shiver. They maintain the knowledge the rest of us discarded. If you're finding this valuable, hit subscribe. We are uncovering forgotten wisdom that the modern apparel industry would rather you not rediscover. You do not need to spin your own wool or sew your own garments, but you do need to understand the principles. First, eliminate cotton from your cold weather base layers completely. This is non-negotiable. Look for merino wool or quality linen as your first layer against skin. Merino is softer than traditional wool and manages moisture exceptionally well. It can be worn for days without retaining odor because lanolin and fiber structure resist bacterial growth. Second, build your insulation layer from wool. A quality wool sweater or fleece, actual wool fleece, not synthetic, provides the thermal mass and air trapping structure you need. Layer multiple pieces rather than relying on one thick garment. This gives you modularity to adjust as conditions and activity levels change. Third, protect your insulation with an appropriate shell. For wet conditions, look for tightly woven wool with retained lanolin or modern membranes if natural options are unavailable. The key is blocking wind and precipitation before they reach your insulation layer. Fourth, seal your thermal bridges. Pay attention to wrists, neck, and waist. Anywhere cold air can infiltrate. Hoods that integrate with your collar. Gloves or mittens that overlap with sleeves. A system is only as strong as its weakest point. Fifth, accept that you will spend more upfront. Quality wool costs more than cotton or cheap synthetics. But a merino base layer that lasts 10 years costs less per wear than cheap synthetics replaced every season. Medieval economics actually favored durability over disposability. The three-layer system works because each layer enhances the others. Linen manages moisture and hygiene. Wool provides thermal mass and insulation. The shell blocks weather. Remove any layer and system effectiveness drops dramatically. The medieval peasant shivering in his wool layers was not primitive. He was working with a system refined over thousands of years, a system that prioritized physics over fashion, function over marketing. We traded that wisdom for cheap cotton and synthetic promises. We let industrial economics override thermal science. We forgot that survival clothing is not about brand names or space-age materials. It is about understanding how heat moves and how to keep it where you need it. Your $300 jacket is not the problem. The cotton underneath it is. The synthetic base layer that traps moisture is. The gaps at your wrists and neck are. The system failure starts with choices made before you ever put on that expensive outer shell. Medieval people understood that your body is a heating engine, but only if you give it the right tools. They built clothing systems that worked with human physiology, not against it. They stayed warm at -40 degrees with materials we consider primitive. The secret was never lost. It was just buried under marketing budgets and cheap fossil fuels. Every time you choose wool over cotton, seal your thermal bridges, and build a proper layering system, you reclaim knowledge that kept people warm when the world was brutal. Knowledge that still works today. What surprised you most about medieval clothing science? The lanolin waterproofing, the crimp structure physics, or the moisture management of linen? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want more forgotten wisdom that outperforms modern technology.